So controversial, I don't know if I should say.
Okay, all right.
Hey, how's
There's
it going?
a nice handshake. How many handshakes have you done
Oh,
in the last 3 months?
Yeah, I wash my hands a lot.
Yeah. Do you know the history of this restaurant?
I do not. Please tell me.
This is Saigon, but this is the very first Vietnamese restaurant in Saskatoon.
I did not know that.
I'm told from my coworker that this is the very first one, and the very first version of it was beside Garden Architecture.
We used to go all the time when I worked at CTV.
Right.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. This is awesome.
Yeah, but let's just go start at the beginning. So I don't know anything about your history.
Grew up on a farm just outside of Saskatoon near Blackstrap. Went to school in Hamlin, K to 12. Dundurn was always the hometown because when you come from rural Saskatchewan, home is always where your rink is.
Right. Okay.
That's where I figure skated, where I curled with my dad. We were rink rats.
Right. So when did you make your way into Saskatoon?
Well, Saskatoon was really always the city, and where my grandparents lived, and I spent my cousins. We were here all the time. Yeah, it was exciting every Thursday after school when they only had Thursday night shopping.
Thursday night was like shopping night.
Yeah.
Tuesday night was like cheap night at the theater. And then Sundays it was optional if the malls were open.
And that's interesting because I think I was doing the news at the time when we decided that we were going to have Sunday shopping. I just remember it was a super contentious bylaw change to allow businesses to stay
so it was a
open on
bylaw.
Sunday because, that was,
Sacred.
kind of. People were pretty heated
I didn't
about
grow up
that
in a church,
change.
so Sunday we just had nothing to do. We're just like, can't go to the mall, just sit and watch 2 channels. Interesting.
2 channels, that's right. Those
Yeah.
are the good old days for Rob McDonald and me because we had 86% of the timeshare of anybody who was watching any screen.
Yeah. Was it CTV right away, or like tell us how you got into that world?
So I went to university and got a degree, and I wanted to also get a journalism degree because they didn't have journalism in Saskatoon, but it was the 80s and interest rates were 20% and I needed a job.
How old were you when you first got in there?
22.
Oh, really?
And then I went to CKLQ Radio, Q Country Radio in Brandon, Manitoba. And I was there for about 6 months, and then I got my first TV job in Prince Albert.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was there for about 6 months, and then came to Saskatoon, and within those 6 months, they invited me to be the first woman anchor on the flagship 6 o'clock news.
So you were only 6 months, and then you got an anchor job? That doesn't seem like very normal now.
And even then it wasn't. I remember, trying to get somebody to talk to me, and it sort of showed up on somebody's doorstep just to ask questions. How do I get a break and get into this industry? And I remember the news director at the time going, well, it's going to be 10 years before you'd be able to get a job here.
Yeah.
And I remember going, oh, I'll be so old.
Huge viewership
just
too,
turned
compared
24.
to what the ratings might be compared to now. You had a huge audience probably in Saskatoon. Who's your
Local
co-anchor at the
TV
time?
was a
it
big
Rob?
deal back then. Rob McDonald was my co-anchor. You know how controversial it is when people talk about pizza with pineapple?
I'm a big sweet and savory fan guy. What about you? Are you a pineapple?
It's so controversial, I don't know if I should say,
But
but
it
I do
doesn't-
have a strong opinion.
Are you against it?
Oh, I'm a pineapple girl.
Yeah, me too.
I love the sweet and savory.
I heard that you love to cook.
I used to love to cook.
Yeah.
When I had time and when I, had a family, that was at home, it was really enjoyable for me to cook a meal, especially on the weekends, and
So if you're not
invite
cooking, what are you
people
doing?
over. And, well, sorry, this is the sad part, but yeah, my husband passed away, and my kids are growing up, and so very often it's just me.
Right.
And so
The
I'm
kids
embarrassed
only
to say that sometimes it's just Miss Vicky's for dinner, and I'm trying to improve that.
But you probably have a busy schedule.
That's
though,
that's on
so-
top of that. Curry is probably my favorite food.
Really? Okay, so I was
But
going
I
to say,
never
if
had
you're
it
going
when
to
I was a
open up
kid.
a food truck, so limited menu, and it's just like the one thing that I make this really good, the public's going to really like it.
What would be to be honest, my go-to that everyone says best meal ever? My spaghetti and meat sauce.
What's your sort of go-to on how to put that together?
So I like doing it with crushed tomatoes and no other sauce, but the flavors, the things that I don't think other people necessarily use, fresh garlic, I put crushed cloves in. Cloves are actually a big deal.
Interesting.
A bit of cinnamon. And there's something about those flavors that make it just fantastic.
I've seen, you seem like you're healthy. Feel healthy?
Well, as long as I get enough sleep.
Is there any sort of kind of like, why did I get into doing this? Or is it like, no, this is awesome, it's rad, it's fun?
Both. It's just, there's a lot, but I get excited when I get on the doors and people are happy to see you on the doors. I get excited when other people are excited about the future of our city. That sounds sort of political, but it's actually true. I feel good when people feel that there's a good future here.
Right.
When they look at me and say, I think you have a good vision, and that you want to lift people up and you want to make sure that this is a thriving place for all people, that gets me excited and makes me want to just work even harder. Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
But also I think it's just really important to make sure you keep up with your friends. Make sure that you're spending time with your family, making sure you have time to do yoga. That's
that's
my
your thing?
I love yoga.
Counselor's supposed to be a part-time job, but like it's never a part-time job, right?
You know, I can't speak for other counselors, but I can say that when you represent the downtown and the heritage neighborhoods that surround the downtown on the east side, you're literally on the front lines of city building.
Yeah.
And that means change.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and you're dealing with aging infrastructure, and you know, people want to stay in their neighborhoods, and we didn't have accessible sidewalks everywhere. We are getting very good at that. What have we got here?
Okay.
Oh my goodness, this looks delicious.
Thank you. A big power move that I've always talked about is like having people watch you eat. So here's my tip, maybe at the debate, you eat like an apple. And and then everybody kind of has to sit and watch you eat. I don't know, try that. Fried rice, probably pretty simple to eat. Those are classic VN rolls, I'm assuming, but this is kind of maybe the highlight, is like, these are like, I think these are Thai style wings or Vietnamese style wings, and they're like butter fried. And there's a little bit of a lemon sauce in there. And I always say that a lot of people don't like think that you'd come here for wings. But try those wings and tell me that they're not like some of the best wings you've ever had. Quick question: are you, because you're a CTV, or are you like a Knowlton Nash or Peter Mansbridge versus Lloyd Robertson kind of? That's the question everybody wants to know.
So, Lloyd Robertson all the way.
Really?
Yeah, and when I was on maternity leave with my first child, they were doing a big PR thing with the news anchors across the country, and they flew everybody into Toronto for the same few days, and we did all of these big photo shoots with Lloyd Robertson. I was a new mom. Like, I think Casey would have been 3 months old maybe, and Lloyd went immediately to pick up Casey, and I've got pictures of him looking at Casey and holding my son. It was so awesome.
So there's a special place for.
Oh yeah, Lloyd Robertson's the sweetest man. These are delicious, by the way. They're really good with the lemon. Like.
I was going to ask you a question about like what would be in your capsule for the top 4 chocolate bars.
Okay, fun fact. I don't really like chocolate. I can tell you the ones that I've loved throughout my life.
Okay.
So O. Henry, Crunchy Bar.
They're different enough.
Wig-Wag.
What?
Oh yeah, see, you're too young to know Wig-Wag.
When did that get decommissioned?
I know, like they're crazy. Like that was a great
What
bar.
kind of describe a wig-wag?
It kind of went like this together, and it was like soft toffee, all covered in chocolate.
So, what's your sort of hidden skill that a lot of people don't know that you have?
Well, I was just talking about I think that when you just grow up doing stuff and you do it a lot, you can get good at it. But I'm today years old and I still love slalom skiing. Like I enjoy it.
Like one ski.
Yeah, and I don't suck. Like I actually do okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you ever think about like competing, or did you ever?
Oh
compete?
no, that was never my thing. I was.
Never got into wakeboarding or the new.
Oh yeah, I can wakeboard.
What about wake surfing?
Oh yeah, I can surf too. So, okay, little known fact. So my mom was a piano teacher, vocal teacher, singer, songwriter, and so eventually I became known as the wedding singer.
Oh, really?
Right. My mom was very talented at those things, and I didn't get any of it, to be honest.
But do you still karaoke every once in a while?
When strongly encouraged and under certain circumstances, I would definitely karaoke.
Would you karaoke and make a promise that you'd karaoke at your acceptance speech?
Not on.
What was your first car?
A 1974 Dodge Scamp, and it looked like it sounds.
Somebody said that you love to travel.
I do.
Okay, what about a place that you haven't been to that you've always wanted to or been curious about going?
There's so many. I have been to Europe a couple of times. We did take the kids when they were 5 and 8, against every parent's advice.
Really?
Like, don't do that. We honestly were probably the only people that have ever gone to Rome and skipped the Vatican to go to the zoo, where we got to see really exotic things like white-tailed deer. When you have that role, there's something that feels important to people that you just show up.
You said show up. It's funny. I said I didn't do much research. I Googled your name last night, and one of the first articles that showed up was that you had perfect attendance, like as a counselor. And it was like you're the only one that had like a perfect attendance for attending the counselor meetings, which is pretty funny that you're saying it's important to show up, but you are notorious for showing up.
Yes, I mean, I feel an obligation, and I do think, especially in that first term, I had so much to learn, and I took it very seriously. And like I said, I represent an area of the city that is on the front lines of city building, and so there's contentious issues, and there's things that people need help with, and I felt that I just needed to make sure that I was present and paying attention and advocating as hard as I could, even though I know not everybody agrees with the decisions you make, and that's hard, because I don't like disappointing people either. I want to make sure that we are understanding in a way that helps us move ahead, like in a way that's good for everybody. But not everyone's going to view it that way, and so sometimes you just have to stand in the fire and make those tough calls.
But you're a good reader because you're in a book club. So like reading is natural. And you read.
And everybody knows that's what book clubs are all about.
Your whole life
reading.
is reading. Think about teleprompters,
I'm kind of teasing
books.
a little bit. Yeah, our book club is a lot of friendship, a lot of sharing.
Read the first chapter and then just drink wine.
I'll just say that I think in the early days of our book club, we were really kind of bossy with each other, and we might do a little bit of this if you didn't read the book.
Right.
And now we realize, like, people's lives, we were having babies and raising families and trying to work and trying to keep all the balls in the air. And then, of course, inevitably in life, you have tragic things happen. And, there was divorces, there were deaths, there were lots of hard times too. And that's your support system, though. And so we learned that reading the book is optional.
I find that like everybody's truth is different now, and we're going back to the Knowlton Nash
That drives me crazy.
And Lloyd Robertson. Back in the day, the #1 news story at night, they'd be equal. They'd be the same on CTV and CBC.
In my day, like the messengers of the news were the truth tellers.
Yeah.
Right. And now, people use their own social media, and the algorithms feed into whatever they decide they might think they want to believe to be true. And I worry about how we move forward as a society with social cohesion, with what does a good education even look like, and how does that impact the way that we go forward as a society. You should run for public office.
Well, no, I would be a crowd pleaser, and I would just
It's not possible to be a crowd pleaser,
Yeah.
Albert. It's not.
I know,
Because
but that's what I mean. That's why I'm not in the office.
Pleasing some people will greatly displease others.
Yeah.
And that's the job.
Yeah.
You got to stand in the fire and make those calls.
At work, I always tell people I've never left a girlfriend, and I've never fired anybody. I'm confident in a lot of things I say, and I get fired up. But like when it comes down to like completely changing somebody's life, I'm like, I don't know if I can do it.
Do you have kids?
Yeah, I have kids, so yeah.
Well,
it'll
you
teach me.
You should start to learn very quickly that you can't please them all the time and keep them alive.
For sure, exactly.
I think that wise leadership, it's that old adage, you plant trees, the shade of which ye shall never enjoy.
Exactly.
And that's okay.
So,
That's the job.
see,
In my view,
that's
that is the
why
job.
I wouldn't be a good politician. It's because I just want to like sit in the shade of the tree that I planted all day. So you're more altruistic than I am.
Well, who knows? I think you might, as you start raising your family, maybe have a different opinion. Thanks
Oh.
so much for having lunch with me. This was fantastic. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think it was more like getting your interest out. So I'm just like interested. So that's not the only thing.
So am I. And I guess
Yeah.
that's what leadership looks like. You teach and learn together.
For sure.
I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
But when I talk to you and we build a relationship,
That's what
we
leadership
change the
is.
world
Yeah.
a little bit at a time.